Hello, Jen here with a layout. Oh, no, you know what, you guys? I'm just so used to saying layout all the time, but that's not what I'm creating today. I am creating some Christmas cards for the Emerald Creek design team. So let me go back. I'm going to start again. Hello, Jen here with some Christmas cards that I've designed for the Emerald Creek design team. I've pulled out some of my favorite Emerald Creek watercolors. These are all handmade, so definitely just gorgeous and unique and really fun to play with. And I decided I would go ahead and create what I'm kind of doing lately for Christmas cards, which is whenever I have a free moment or I'm sitting in front of the TV and have, some of my watercolors with me, I have just been creating the fronts of cards. And so that's what I'm doing here. I thought that I would bring you guys along to play a little bit and just experiment with some of these colors and some of these paints and what we can do to create some fun, unique Christmas cards. So I'm starting out, I've already sprayed all of my paints. You can see them up at the top. I've got some of the heat set paints. I've got some of the kaleidoscope paints, and I just kind of want to play around with them. I will swatch them out here so you can kind of see them a little bit. I also have this tag sitting beside me because as I'm brushing or washing off my brush, I'm painting that little tag because I don't want to waste any of the gorgeous colors. But I have the pomegranate, I have the BC rainforest, I have the Kananaskis. What else do I have? I have gold, silver, and copper out. I have amethyst and I have topaz out. I think that is all of them. So a few of the metallic ones, and then the pomegranate one and the BC rainforest, that's the red and the green. Those ones are kaleidoscopes. They're just really gorgeous, intense colors. Then the rest of them, the topaz, the amethyst, they're heat set, and so they're really fun to play with because you can let them blend like a normal watercolor, or you can heat set in between your layers, and then rather than the colors blending, they kind of layer on top of each other. So I do a little bit of that here as well. But yeah, I just really wanted to play. So got all of my colors sprayed and kind of prepped, ready to go. And then I went ahead and swatched them just so that in the back of my mind, I could really know what each color was and how it looks on the watercolor paper that I'm using. Then I grabbed out my watercolor paper. I decided to cut it into a bunch of shapes that are kind of card shapes. So some of them are a little bit smaller. You never know when something comes up and you might just need a quick tag, or you might just need something that doesn't have to be a full card. And so I like to kind of make these fronts, and then if I want to turn them into a card, I can just attach them to a card base, put a little stamp inside, write my note or whatever. But if I don't need something that's a full card, I can use these, pop a hole in them with a hole punch and tie them onto a gift bag, that kind of thing. So this is what I've been doing lately ever since Daisy and I have stopped doing our Christmas card series that we used to do every November. If I think about it, I will put the link or a little iCard up in one of these corners so you can go and check that out. It was basically a series about two scrapbooking ladies who are not card makers, who decided we wanted to try our hand at making cards. And so we scoured the internet and found the first season, we found our inspiration from Christina Warner. The second season, we just kind of picked from all of the different amazing card makers that are out there. The third season, we actually asked our friends to give us inspiration. And it could have been, a card off of Pinterest or wherever it came from. And so, yeah, we just saw what we could do with our own stash and tried our hand at making cards. It was super, super fun. And what it really taught me was that I don't love really detailed, finicky cards. I love getting them. I love watching people make them. I'm in absolute awe of people who make them. But I don't enjoy the process of making them myself. All the different layers and like putting it all together and using my manual die cutting machine. And it's too many steps for me. And I feel like I never get it done and feel really good about it. I have really been enjoying these types of things. They're very handmade looking, but they're fun for me, and I just enjoy watching the watercolors blend together and just seeing what I can do. So, yeah, I thought I would just bring you along on that journey of creating some of these. So I've got the watercolor, and then the only other thing I added here was you need something circular. So for me, you could eyeball it, absolutely go ahead and eyeball it, but I wanted to have the outside of my little Christmas baubles. I wanted to make sure that they were kind of as circular as possible. And I thought I'm going to go ahead and use this toilet paper roll. It was the right size. I felt like it made a good circle that still, it wasn't necessarily perfect, but it was perfect enough that I had that right shape to work with. I also bent it, as you can see here, and got another really cool shape out of it. That's kind of a Christmas shape. And then I have a couple other circular things that I tried. Some worked, some didn't, but I figured I was going to give them a try and see what I can get out of them. And so that's what you're going to watch me doing here. You've already seen me do it a couple of times. And then all I'm doing is taking some of my colors and kind of layering. This one here, I had some green. I added a little touch of blue in there. You'll see a better close-up, but look at how beautiful that is. I heat set this one because the one blue, the topaz, I think is the one I used. It is a heat set, so I decided that once it had blended with the green, I would go ahead and use my heat gun and really let that set in. If I wanted to come back later and add some extra color, then I would be adding layers and not necessarily re-blending those colors, which also means that I could add a little bit of extra water and it wouldn't start to break down the paper. I am using watercolor paper, so it's pretty forgiving, but I thought I didn't quite know at this point how much more I might want to add. So I figured it would be a good idea to go ahead and heat set. And so there you just saw an example of something that didn't work. I pulled out that little pumpkin container because I thought the bottom of it had a bit of an edge to it, and so it would have made a really nice circle, but also the top was a little bit scalloped, so I thought if I could get that to work, it might be an interesting shape for some of these baubles. But the watercolors didn't really want to stick to that plastic enough that when I put it down on the paper, nothing was coming up. So I decided to go ahead and scratch that and not use that container anymore. And here is another example of me experimenting and not necessarily having things turn out the way I hoped they would. I thought that I could maybe add a little bit of color to this and blend it out, and I don't love it. It's too dark. I didn't really enjoy how this turned out with that kind of darker. That one is the Kananaskis Sky. I think it's called Kananaskis Sky. It's quite kind of dark and moody and inky and absolutely stunning, but I didn't love this. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep working with it. I'm not going to scratch it, but you'll see near the end, I do come back and find a way to kind of fix it a little bit. So that's part of the learning process for me, and I'm happy to show you guys that. So don't panic when you're playing around if something doesn't work out. Keep going. Just, take it as far as you can, and see if at some point in your creative process, something comes up that helps you to maybe fix it and turn it into something that you're really happy with. So I just kept going with this one. I added that one green kind of oval shape, and then I found the lid from my spray bottle was the perfect shape for these tiny little circular baubles. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and use. As I was creating this, I actually thought if you took the shape, that more oval shape of the bent paper towel roll and these tiny little circles from the lid, you could make a really pretty little holly with this too. I didn't do that, but it's on my list for the next time that I kind of sit down and decide I want to just plop myself in front of the TV with some watercolors and some paper and play around. I think I'm going to make some little hollies. And then I think that they are large enough that they would be really easy to fussy cut out, and you could stick those onto a card base and make something really cute. So here you can see I dried that red bauble and then came back in and added even more red. And when you see the close-ups, you'll see that there are just these beautiful layers of that red. And that pomegranate is such a gorgeous Christmas color. It's a cool red and it's just very pretty and Christmassy. So it's definitely one of my favorites. And I know I say this on repeat all through Christmas. Red for me is a really hard color. So the fact that I found one that I absolutely love and it layers really nice, it's probably going to be my go-to for the whole Christmas season. So here again, I decided to experiment. I did some baubles. They were turning out really well. I needed them to dry a little bit and kind of sit and think about how I might want to finish them. So I thought I would go ahead and do some of these trees. And if you guys did watch my series, the Christmas card series, I did a card like this. It was inspired by, I actually don't remember who it was inspired by, but I think it was a Pinterest card that we had found, and I did rainbow trees and then just touch the bottom of each tree, and the water just bleeds a little bit and makes a bit of a shadow. I wanted to experiment and see what these particular paints might do, blending together and kind of layering on top of each other and stuff. So I'm not sure I love how this in particular turned out, but for a first try, it was definitely really fun to play around and layer up some of those blue colors and just see what I could do with them. And I'm going to keep it because why not? You never know. There might be a situation where I pull that out and decide that there's something else I can add to it, maybe make it a background and add something on top of it, some embellishments or something like that, and turn it into a beautiful card. So I'm definitely not going to get rid of it. Again, it's that creative process and having the opportunity to play, and it definitely looks a lot better when I add some of the glitter. So nothing is, a lost cause. So here I'm going to work with more of the purples and the blues and a little bit of green. I think that's always a really fun, non-traditional Christmas color scheme that you can go with. And it works really well for Christmas baubles because they can kind of be any color you want. Same with wrapping paper. So you could actually take your toilet paper roll and kind of pinch it in the four corners and turn it into a square. And instead of doing baubles, you could do Christmas presents. And in that same case, there's no rules when it comes to the color. So you could play around with all kinds of non-traditional colors if you wanted, or do other occasions. It doesn't necessarily have to be Christmas. You could do, Hanukkah or Easter or birthday presents or whatever. So it's just more about letting the colors blend and kind of playing around with the shapes and what you can do with them. So this is an example where I dried both of those heat set colors, and then I really wanted to intensify that dark blue. So I came back and layered it up, and you can see how it went from something that was a lot more translucent to something that is now pretty opaque and actually really beautiful. It definitely shows off the color really, really well. And then for these ones, I thought I would go more with that purple, which is the amethyst color, and just add a few little highlights in the more kind of turquoisey color, and just see how they blended. It's really beautiful. This is like galaxy colors, if you can think about the blues and the purples. They would look great with a little maybe touch of pink, and I probably could have taken some of my pomegranate and watered it down quite a bit and gotten just a little touch of pink, but I just think that they blended really well and they granulate, which is really, really pretty. That granulation is when you kind of see little almost dots of color in your watercolor. That's granulation. And so in the close-ups that you'll see in a few minutes, you'll be able to kind of see that in some of these pictures, but they granulate really pretty, and when they blend together you get just really fun kind of looks and textures with it. And then here again, I wanted that dark blue to be a little bit darker, so I dried it and then came back in and layered it, and now you can see how much darker it is. So I'm having a lot of fun playing with these heat set colors. They're sort of a watercolor embossing powder, if you think of it that way. They have the properties of watercolors and the embossing powder, which definitely makes sense because this is where you're going to go for all of your embossing powders. If you're looking for gorgeous colors, gorgeous textures, aroma, Kim makes scented embossing powders, and when I tell you they hold their scent, I made a layout where I used a maple syrup scented embossing powder, this beautiful ambery brown color, and I used that. I think it's been 4 years. It was before COVID. It was probably 2019. I used that. It was part of a Wild Whisper layout that I did, and it still smells like maple syrup. It's absolutely fantastic. So definitely go and check out all of Emerald Creek's supplies, their embossing powders, but they're more than embossing powders. Kim has a bajillion beautiful, gorgeous stamps, and their stencils. I'm going to be using one of the stencils. So yes, I think it was super smart of her to come up with this way to have a watercolor that also has some of the properties of embossing powder, because that is sort of the beauty of watercolor, but sometimes also the drawback when you're a scrapbooker is that your watercolors will reactivate every time you get them wet. So if you want to use that to your advantage by maybe doing the smushing technique in the background of your layout or anything like that, then that's wonderful. And I definitely love to use that to my advantage. And that's why I tend to pick watercolors over other mediums, is because I love the way that they blend. But there are occasions when you don't want them to blend, specifically when you have contrasting colors. So if you're trying to do like a green and a purple, or you're trying to do a red and a green, those types of things, you don't want them to blend and make mud. And so those are the occasions when having these colors that you can actually heat set and stop from blending, that's just magical. So I really love them, and this is the perfect opportunity to kind of play around and see what you can do with them. So I decided to test the tree again, just give it a second go. I needed a second to kind of process it and think about what I did with those blue trees. And so then I decided to come back and try it again. And I absolutely adore how the green ones turned out. I used a bit of a different technique. And so I just like that those trees look a little bit more realistic, and I love how I was able to get some of those shadowing. So yeah, just keep going. And every time I do it, I'm learning, and so I'm improving on what I did the time before. So, and then to finish it off, I thought, I'm using these circles. Why not make some snowmen? So I have the toilet paper roll, and then I have the bottom of my little spray bottle, and then I have the top of my little spray bottle, and that made my little snowman. And so in this particular instance, I've kind of given myself a little bit of a gray color just to get those circles to stand out from the white background. And I do add in just a touch of the blue just to kind of blend it and give it a little bit of personality. But again, you could do any color you want. Your snowman does not have to be white. Or if you really did want it to be white, you could use that darker color, that little kind of grayish color, to just make your outlines, and then take a really clean brush. I'm using dirty water, and kind of use the dirty water to make the gray, but take some fresh water, clean your brush really, really well, and then just gently pull in a little bit of the color from that outside ring without covering your whole circle. It just will bring in a little bit of shadow and just kind of blend that color slightly without losing all of the white. So you could definitely do that too. But because I was experimenting with, working with these colors and kind of blending them, I decided to go ahead and see what I could do. But you could make a pink snowman or a blue snowman or a green or whatever color you wanted. It's just, again, the idea of playing and creating these fun little cards. So now I have to finish them off. Oh, and I did add shadow. So I think that really gives the illusion of your snowman kind of standing on snow if you just add a little bit of shadow underneath it to kind of represent the snow. So now I have to give them all personalities. So my snowmen are going to get little carrot noses that are just so cute. And I'm using the back of the paintbrush to go ahead and add their eyes and mouth and little buttons. Just really simple. I'm not going to fuss over too many of the details. All of my baubles I outlined with my black marker, just, very sketchily, and kind of went around them a couple of times, added little strings to make it look like they're dangling or they're hanging. And of course they needed a sentiment. So I grabbed out my Wild Whisper Occasions stamp set. It has a Merry Christmas on it that is just very kind of clean. I like that it's handwritten. That's Heather's handwriting. But yeah, it just kind of matched all of the cards. So I went ahead and used that. Full transparency, I totally regret that I did my little sketchy lines in those trees. I wanted to add something sketchy to it because I felt like all the other ones did, but I don't like how that turned out. So don't do that. Or maybe do. Maybe when you see it up close, you will say, Jen, that looks great, and want to do that. But I probably wouldn't do that again if I'm repeating this and making more cards like that. I'll figure out some other way to kind of, maybe I'll do like a sketchy border on the outside. But yeah, that's the only thing I wasn't super happy about how that turned out. So now here I'm going to show you close-ups of all of the details, because to finish these off, I've gone ahead and added this gorgeous, super chunky glitter. This is from Emerald Creek as well. It's their Magical Minings. So there's a few different types of glitter, but they're all just really beautiful and chunky and really fun, and not that really loose, fine glitter that is going to annoy you. This is a little bit chunkier. It has a little bit more substance to it. It sticks really well to the tacky glue that I have, the Scotch tacky glue in my fine line bottle, but actually it would work really well if you used your ATG or another like adhesive gun or anything like that, or whatever you have, school glue, Aleene's glue, whatever works for you. I find that it was a lot easier to clean up because it was so chunky, and a little goes a long way. So really, I covered all of these. I let them completely dry, and then I came back and I knocked them really hard again just to get any other loose pieces off. And I think they look so gorgeous. And that chunky glitter is definitely Christmassy to me. It screams Christmas because Christmas can be over the top sometimes, right? And just all the glitter and the fun. And so here you can see, not so much on this card because you can't fix the black, the outlines. Here you can see a close-up of it. But on the next tree card, here is how I kind of fix it a little bit by adding some of this glitter. Same with the bauble, the yellow or kind of goldish baubles that I did with that darker kind of shadow to them. I didn't really love that. I covered that up with the glitter and I think it turned out really good. For the snowmen, I went ahead and added a little bit of glitter as their scarves. And so I thought that was really fun. I used some texture paste and added little kind of splotches of snow with one of the stencils from Emerald Creek as well. It's a Christmas stencil. And so I put a little glitter in there too. And that's it. That is my layout. I mean cards. So I can just pop these onto bases as I need them and I'm all done. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please follow all of the links down below. You can find this in my celebration playlist as well. And until next time, happy scrapping. Bye.